It's incentivized, meaning that if you participate, you will be earning test fact, T-fact, along the way during the course of the ITN. Then when the ITN's over, you will be able to convert your test fact for actual real fact. So you'll be rewarded in real fact for participating in the ITN, for essentially helping us, improve and debug and test what this validator network components will be.
What's up, Ada Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central, your home for everything blockchain and crypto. As a part of today's video, I'm going to be doing a touch base with Peter Van Garderen surrounding the Orcfax protocol, which is officially now live on the Cardano mainnet. If it's your first time hearing about Orcfax, they're an Oracle protocol, and their job is to take data from off-chain or data that lives off-chain, secure it, package it, bring it on-chain, and allow for everybody in the ecosystem to begin to utilize that. So this is my second chat with Peter Van Garderen. Again, make sure to check out the introduction where we dive into exactly how the protocol works. Without any further ado, we've got quite the agenda. Let me go ahead and bring the man up himself. Peter, welcome aboard. How are you?
Very well. Good to see you again, Reed. Thank you for having us.
It's my pleasure. I'm excited to talk a little bit about this. There's a lot going on here with Orcfax. I think maybe we just kind of roll our way down this list organically, but there are updates surrounding your ISPO drop, your validator licenses, which I believe will be kicking off here in just a minute. There's also support for Cardano native token feeds, as well as just some upgrades to your overall Oracle technology. So I'll maybe kind of turn it over to you. Maybe just quickly give us the elevator pitch on what Orcfax is, and then you can kind of tackle this in any way, shape, or order that you wish.
Super. Yeah, thanks. Like you in your introduction, you mentioned that Orcfax is a Oracle network, and oracles are primitives in blockchain DeFi that take outside external world data and format it in such a way that the smart contracts on the blockchain L1 can use it as inputs into their smart contracts, which will then trigger a number of different kinds of business logic. The most familiar, the ones we're most familiar with are DeFi contracts, like liquidations and so forth that are sitting there waiting for a certain price point to be reached. And if that price point is reached, then certain funds will be released and so forth. And that's at the very core and basics of what is decentralized finance. Oracles are a critical key component of creating security and trust or trustlessness in decentralized networks. Currently on Cardano, we've been a little bit slow as an L1 blockchain to adopt dedicated Oracle platforms. There's currently only two viable options for Cardano developers to use, and that is our own Orcfax Oracle network and the ADA USD feed we have right now, and many more to come shortly. And then there's our competitor Charlie3 that also has ADA USD feed and other feeds available. The Charlie3 and ourselves, we have taken a different approach in the technology and how we go about collecting data and putting it on chain. We have a different approach in how we fund our model and our research and development. We're very much focused on being a decentralized, self-sustainable project that's not dependent on external funding. And so, yeah, what we are now offering is the Cardano community two different viable options to integrate Oracle data. Now, why is that important? It's important because currently, right now, users of a decentralized protocol on the Cardano blockchain inherently trust that protocol to provide the outside data. So what's not well known is that many protocols are using their own internal Oracle or their own data feed, and the places they're collecting that data and how they're collecting it is not necessarily compliant with or a way to solve what's called the Oracle problem. And Orcfax and Charlie3 are dedicated Oracle networks that our only purpose is to solve the Oracle problem. And the Oracle problem is, how do you stop false data from getting inserted into smart contracts so that people can otherwise create fraudulent transactions and rip people off? And we've seen hundreds of millions of dollars of money being fraudulently stolen in the larger L1, like the Ethereum space, for example, due to not solving the Oracle problem correctly. So it is a potential serious threat underlying the growth of Cardano DeFi if we don't start moving quickly now towards moving our protocols to decentralized Oracle feeds to protect that attack vector, especially as we're all kind of gearing up and expecting kind of the next bull run. So both, I think the two Oracle providers on Cardano are working very hard to make sure that there's solutions available to the protocols. We're working very closely with hand in hand with some technical teams on a couple of major protocols on Cardano to make sure that how we're offering our feeds and how they consume them, again, are the most efficient, the most usable, the most developer friendly, the most financially sustainable. So we're getting very, very excited. We're working hard on a protocol upgrade. We created something called the Cardano Open Oracle Protocol, which is the protocol that we use to publish datum on chain. We're working closely with the MLabs team to do one last final upgrade that to prepare us for full-on mainnet launch. And as soon as we do that, we can offer a large number of other centralized exchange price feeds, ADA to BTC, ADA to Euro, for example. And then most excitingly, we're gearing up to launch our Cardano native token product, which is where we offer price feeds per block for tokens that are Cardano native, such as our own fact tokens, such as World Mobile token and Power token and so forth. Those are Cardano native tokens. And there's huge pent-up demand in the Cardano DeFi space for accurate data right now. People are collecting data from one DEX or the other. We've developed a very interesting formula. We will open source it. We will make it reveal it. But what we're in a nutshell, what we're doing is we're collecting data per block for every transaction happening on every DEX to come up with the mean value of a particular Cardano native token for that particular block. So we feel that we have the most comprehensive, timely way of producing Cardano native token pricing. And getting very, very close to introducing that. We're just waiting for these last bits of protocol upgrades with the MLabs team. So all that's happening in our very near future. And then we've had a few other other events happening around the project recently that I can talk about as well that you mentioned in the introduction. But I'm not sure if you have any questions about that. If there's anything I said that was maybe needs further explanation for you about what we're up to with an Oracle network.
I mentioned this last time you were on here. You are a master of words. The amount of information you were able to deliver in just that short amount of time was extremely impressive. Again, we sat down, I believe it was for about 45 minutes in our prior interview. So I just want to reiterate it for the community. If anything that Peter just mentioned piques your interest, we probably did discuss it in our first interview. Please make sure to go ahead and check that out. It was a wealth of information breaking down literally from the very beginning to all the way to the very end, how data is managed, triangulated, secured, and archived, etc. Now, you mentioned something, and maybe we just kind of work this in at the very beginning because I think it's probably the most time sensitive, and that's going to be the validator licenses. You mentioned the fact that decentralization is a huge aspect for what you guys are trying to do. You guys have just hit the main net, but there are some centralized or some federated aspects to what you guys currently have. The next step is to work towards an incentivized testnet and to actually give the community the ability to run their own validator nodes. So, Peter, can you explain to us, what's coming up with the sale, what's required, and how can anybody who's interested in becoming an Orcfax validator begin to do so?
Yeah, super. Thanks for that. Yeah, our vision for being a decentralized Oracle network is that it is a permissionless decentralized Oracle network, meaning that we have anybody that has the technology and the right amount of stake, regardless of where they are in the world, regardless of who they are, they should be able to run an Orcfax validator node. That's true decentralized permissionless blockchain ecosystem. And yeah, thanks for that. So right now we're in this phase one where the Orcfax project itself is running multiple collector nodes and validator nodes to do the decentralized data collection in the sense that it's more than one of our nodes doing that. Then our end goal is that phase three, where we will then switch over all the data collection to this validator network, and I'll discuss in a minute the licenses that we're selling to participate in that. In between those two phases is our incentivized testnet, that phase two, which is while we're running our federated network, we are essentially going to do research and development on how we're going to roll with this validated network. It's incentivized, meaning that if you participate, you will be earning test fact, T-fact, along the way during the course of the ITM. Then when the ITM's over, you will be able to convert your test fact for actual real fact. So you'll be rewarded in real fact for participating in the ITN, for essentially helping us improve and debug and test what this validator network components will be. And then when you get to phase three, people with validator licenses, we're capping it at 100 right now, will then be able to run the validator network node technology that we have developed during the phase two. And then we will formally make the switch to make the entire network do all its data sourcing, all its data collecting, validating, and publishing is now happening through these independent validator node operators, and that's all getting published on mainnet. It's difficult to I'm looking at these dates here. That's about right still. So roadmaps are really difficult in software development, especially in blockchain. But yeah, we plan to be there by the end of this calendar year, arrive at that point. So to start, operating a validator node in any kind of validator node network has incentives. We've seen it in blockchain for a number of years already. And so the idea is that help us secure the network, help us, we have stake pool operators, for example, in the Cardano space. There's all other kinds of like validator type network scenarios and use cases. But the idea is that help us secure the actual decentralization of the network, help us decentralize the validation. And by holding a validator license, you are recognized as being a valid Orcfax node operator. And so typically those licenses can have value, because the idea is that as you're a node operator, you're going to help us collect data, publish data, and each time that the protocol gets rewarded, if fees are paid for that, you get a share of that as a validator network. And of course, the idea is that the more feeds we add, the more volume we get to the network, the more profit, ideally, a node operator starts to earn by being a node operator, because they're receiving a larger and larger share of more and more fees being paid for more and more transactions requesting Orcfax data. So that's the financial incentive, and that's why there is some financial value to being a validator node. I mean, we've seen this before in Cardano, for example, with the World Mobile Token. We've taken a lot of take a look at the playbook really closely and how they rolled out their validator network as well as a number of other projects. So the way this all starts is that you need to, if you want to become a validator, you need to reserve one of those potential 100 licenses. And we've got a great Medium article. I think you've got it right there, Rahid. Breaking down in very close detail exactly how this process will work. But it started, we're doing this interview right now on Saturday, February 17th. I just finished a Twitter space announcing the reservation process going live. It's going to be running over a number of days. And we have what we think is a very egalitarian way of holding your spot in the reservation. It's if you got there earlier, and if you stake a number of your own fact, which again, you hold in your own wallet, you don't give to anybody else, you keep it. It's just a way of holding it in place while we have a reservation period. By the end of the reservation period, we have a scoring system based on how much fact you locked up during that period and at what time you joined the reservation process. There's a point system for that, and that will then determine the number of the people that are actually are able to then purchase one of those 100 validated node licenses. I'm not very good at explaining this part of it, but so the Medium article goes to quite a bit of detail. But the short end of it again is that we have a reservation period open right now. You can participate in it. That allows you then, that gives you the right to then mint a validator NFT license. Once you have that, you can hang on to it and become a validator in our mainnet, or that license itself will have value on the secondary market. So we can anticipate people buying and selling the ability to be a Orcfax validator operator. And of course, ideally over time, as the network starts generating more revenue, those validator licenses will also appreciate in value. So that in and of itself will have value as well. And again, these are all standard, not standard, but these are all practices we've seen as validator node networks have been rolling out over the past couple of years. But hopefully in the program notes, you can have a link to that Medium article to read, because it does a way better job of breaking down exactly how this process works.
I think in the amount of time that you had to break it down, you did an excellent job. I will definitely go ahead and leave the link to the article down below. It literally walks you through everything, as Peter just mentioned. Number one, from reserving the actual validator license, which he just highlighted how to do that. Then to number two, how to purchase and actually mint your validator license. Then to number three, introducing the ITN, or the incentivized testnet, as well as depositing your fact into the validator smart contract, participating in ITN, claiming those rewards. Because again, keep in mind, because it is incentivized, when you participate on the testnet, you will be rewarded, as he mentioned, with actual fact on the Cardano mainnet. So that will have some value. And then lastly, talks about, just going live once everything has been tested and is ready to be rolled out. So unless you have any sort of closing thoughts or comments surrounding the validator license, which again, I'll leave all the official information for that down below, let's maybe jump into the ISPO airdrop, and can you maybe kind of give us an update surrounding that, because you guys had an ISPO, which I think was maxed out almost instantly, and it was full for the entire time period. So what's next? What can people expect when it comes to the rewards?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, we were pretty proud of that ISPO. We never really did full research, but we get to be have anybody else mention an ISPO that got subscribed quicker than that. I think we fully subscribed within 4 epochs, and it stayed fully subscribed. And what that meant to us, that up until then, we were very much a bit of a stealth project, R&D. Like we got one Catalyst R&D grant to get ourselves up and running. And just quietly went about our business until we were ready to go to mainnet. So we had a small dedicated audience of people that believed in the vision I was presenting for an Oracle, especially me as an archivist. I have some very specific ideas about what I think an Oracle network should be able to do and what it can do. And so, yeah, we had a dedicated audience that believed in us, that subscribed to the ISPO. They've been rewarded very well. I don't know the actual X. I think it's at least 7x or 10x by the time they got their vested drops on the FACT tokens. And so we vested that over a 6-month period, and we've been releasing those drops. And as of 2 days ago, we released the very last of our ISPO drops. And so, yeah, we're super grateful. That's, from starting with a bit of seed funding from Catalyst, where I could hire, pay for myself and a developer, to the point where the ISPO let me build the larger team, to the point of us doing our launch pad on Wing Riders back in September. We've been fully self-funded through those token sales up until now, standing on our own 2 feet, and looking forward to continuing to do that. So the ISPO was just one of those kind of success stories that really showed us that there was community interest in the approach that we're taking. I think we're taking a little bit more of a serious long-term, long game approach to what an Oracle network can and actually should be. It's not just about delivering price feeds. It's about much more than that. In my opinion, it's about building a decentralized truth machine. And I've gone on some other rants and written some other Medium articles about that in the past. But so, yeah, the ISPO to us was just like a nice way to wrap up what we thought was a very successful community engagement. And right around the same time, we also wrapped up our Zealy campaign, Zealy. It's like a popular method to gain to do some community engagement. And so what we had our users prepare content about Orcfax, Oracle Network, create fun memes and graphics and little write-ups and blog posts in return for rewards, and as a way to build our community. And that was also hugely successful. Our subscribers, our followers went up by quite a large number as we ran that campaign. And we are now, if I can't remember correctly, but I believe the rewards have been handed out, or those rewards will also be handed out very shortly. And we were very happy with the results of that. We went from a bit of a stealth R&D project to now being, I think, a full-on Cardano community member, right in the thick of the Cardano ecosystem. We spent a lot of time in the last year now going to Cardano conferences and events, getting the word out. So yeah, the ISPO, the Zealy campaign, were all kind of ways from kind of bringing Orcfax from this little small R&D project into a full legit like Cardano DeFi player. And yeah, we're continuing to grow. Like we're hiring another Cardano developer. So pass the word, DM me if you've got interest in that and you've got some Cardano experience. And we're just getting really excited about building out this technology over the next year.
Peter, let me know as soon as you guys are hiring a content creator. I'd love to join Orcfax. Seriously, if you guys ever need any dedicated content, I'm more than happy to contribute.
Sounds good.
On a much more serious note, I want to commend you guys again for how you guys utilize and took advantage of the ISPO, right? I think, again, this is an area here that Cardano has, and projects have been able to leverage that, some of them better than others. And I think you guys have done a good job, obviously provided value to early investors and believers in the Orcfax vision, while also being able to, as you mentioned, fund the team, be able to pay yourselves and make sure that you guys are still at the end of the day being able to keep your own personal lights on, right? Like we would all love to see Cardano get a decentralized Oracle solution, but not at the expense of you and, taking care of your well-being. So I want to just commend you there. One last question, just running the ISPO, is there any sort of claim process? Are you guys airdropping the tokens? Can you maybe just kind of clarify that for anybody who participated in the ISPO and maybe just kind of stepped away from the actual claim process or just from the space in general?
Yeah. So once a month for 6 months, each portion of your vested total was available through Tossi Drop, TOSI Drop, which is one of several drop platforms on the Cardano space. So you had the option of like claiming it all at once. So then of course you pay a transaction fee every time you claim a drop. Or so some people just made the choice to just wait till now to the end of 6 months and claim their entire vested 6 months vested in one transaction. But you go to Tossi Drop, you punch in your wallet address, and your matching rewards will be there available for a drop. Please come. It hasn't always gone smoothly. There's been a few issues once in a while here and there, but our team is always standing by in Discord. So if you run into any issues at all claiming your rewards, please drop into Discord. Just no stupid questions. We'll help you sort it out. And there will be a window of time. I believe it's 6 months. It might be a year. I have to double check on that you can go and claim those rewards. We can't burn our own tokens, according to our minting policy. So if there are tokens remaining at the end, I believe we've designated those to go back to the ecosystem allocation of the fact token. So that again, that money will go back into supporting the ecosystem and trying to build up the Oracle network. So yeah, that's it. Like I think the majority of ISPO holders were collecting monthly, but I know there's a few that are waiting for we're waiting for this final last drop.
Thank you for the updates on that. If you need an extra wallet to send any of those unclaimed tokens to, let me know.
Sounds good. You'll be posting that address down below. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. Seriously, and on a serious note, again, please, if you guys participate in the ISPO, make sure to go ahead and check Tosi Drop. I'll leave the link to Tosi Drop down below. Yes. Super simple. You just plug in your staking address, and it immediately lets you know, what tokens are available. And I think there might be like a 1 or 2 ADA claim fee that you go ahead and just pay, and then you're able to claim all your ISPO rewards. Let's keep things moving here. You mentioned earlier Cardano native token feeds. This I think is huge right now. On your Explorer, I believe you guys provide its updates on the ADA USD price, right? Which I think is the first, it makes sense. It's probably the most utilized. When and how can the community now begin to get access to these feeds? And then can you maybe also go into a little bit of detail surrounding the pricing model, right? Because every time that I bring on DeFi projects, they always highlight utilizing their own Oracle solution. And I always advocate for them to either plug C3 or you guys in. But I think the biggest hurdle is that it costs, right? So instead of them paying for this, they end up going either with a custom solution or some sort of closed source solution. And then every once in a while, you see issues or hiccups with a single point of failure relating back to the Oracle, right? So again, I know it's like a threefold question, but number one, when and how Cardano native token feeds, and then number two, maybe some of the pricing details surrounding that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, there is. I think I mentioned earlier. There's really a huge unmet demand right now for Cardano native token price feeds that are accurate and comprehensive. The way that we're going about it, I mentioned earlier, is that all our collector nodes are running their own full Cardano nodes. Every block is checking the block. What we're doing is we're monitoring every DEX, the order book DEXs, the AMMs. We have a weighted formula, like for example, MintSwap has way more liquidity than some of their competitors, for example. So the price that's being reported on MintSwap would have a higher factor in the median price than, for example, than a smaller exchange would. But what we've worked on is creating code that each one of our validator node networks is able to read every block from their own full node, see what every DEX is doing, run the median value calculations, and propose those to the validator network to say this is the current most accurate price for World Mobile Token, for Empower, for Mint Token, so forth. And yes, we will present that as feeds. For the time being, we are subsidizing, the cost of putting these feeds on chain through our own validator reward allocation from our tokens. So we minted a fixed amount of 1 billion FACT tokens. 50% of them are reserved for rewarding validators in the validator network, given a 3 to 5 year curve where that the rewards will slowly decrease as the network itself starts paying for itself. And that, as you mentioned, there is the challenge. How do we convince protocol providers to pay for an Oracle feed when they could very much just go to CoinGecko API and get the data there? Well, we've seen a number of failures starting to happen in the Cardano space as well, exactly around that type of thinking. If you're getting your data from a sole source, if that sole source goes down, you got major problems. So first and foremost, the decentralized Oracle network, one of the things it does, it collects data from more than one primary source. It doesn't just relay data from one point to the next. It says, given the current price of ADA USD and what it's being bought and sold for on Kraken versus like Coinbase versus KuCoin, can we look at all those prices, come up with an average price? And if one of those goes down, can we still get prices from the other ones to continue publishing data? So that's a very important function that oracles provide. And right there is a distinction between two key types of price feeds that we're looking at. So we call them CEX, CEX data feeds, right? So centralized exchange data feeds. So, and for us, it's very important to collect data about those price feeds directly from centralized exchanges with their own order books, not a secondary source like CoinGecko or somewhere else that's doing their own gathering somewhere else. Again, not a very reliable source. So the price of ADA to USD at any one period in time is what the market is right now. Whatever somebody's willing to pay for ADA right now is the price of ADA in USD, and that's happening hundreds, if not thousands, of times per second as these exchanges are buying and selling ADA. And those are the real world events that we're reporting on. We're gathering all that data, coming up with the median value, looking at more than one exchange. In case one exchange goes down, we have at least 2, 3, 4, 10 more exchanges that we're gathering data from, and we're still able to do that calculation and come up with a good median value, even though there might have been a mechanical failure, there might have been a deliberate intentional security failure, all these other steps along the way where the data could be manipulated. A proper decentralized Oracle network ensures that it has security mechanisms in place to prevent that, and that it continues to provide accurate and authentic data. And the problem we have with DeFi protocols using their own oracles is, you can imagine all the different ways that a feed could fail, false data could be introduced. And currently what the DeFi protocols are doing is are doing the trust me bro. Like, hey, we're a good protocol, we're honest people. You should trust this API we got going in the back end there. Don't worry, bro, it's all fine, the data's good. And so, what we need is more and more, community engagement leaders like yourself, and to kind of educate the Cardano space about the importance of running decentralized oracles if we want Cardano to be taken seriously as a number one L1, top L1 decentralized DeFi blockchain. It has to have decentralized oracles. Otherwise, it's missing a huge trust component of the decentralized ecosystem space. And so then the harder part becomes, like, how do we convince protocols to say, well, this is something that costs money, and we're already in negotiations with several major protocol providers to make that easier on them. We're looking at one interesting idea is a token swap with one of them, so that it makes it easier for them to afford to feed. Again, we are subsidizing the cost of the feed quite generously for at least 3 to 5 years to get this network up and running and standing on its own 2 feet. And then the other really critical thing we've done is pretty much every step along the way when we're developing our technology and how we go about collecting, validating, publishing data, we're making sure we minimize transaction fees. So we're pretty confident that we've developed the Cardano Open Oracle Protocol is the most cost-effective, sustainable way of publishing data on the Cardano blockchain over the long term with multiple large amounts of feeds. So A, we brought the cost down, and then B, we have to convince DeFi protocol providers that it's in their best interest, that hopefully they haven't had an Oracle problem incident yet, that if they will have an Oracle problem incident, that their community is going to look at them very seriously and harshly and ask them some serious questions about why they weren't using a decentralized Oracle option. So up until now, they've had a very legitimate response, which is that the Oracle providers in Cardano haven't been ready yet. But that's no longer the case. Both Charlie and ourselves are stepping up to the plate, and over the next couple of months are rolling out these mainnet CEX feeds and CNT feeds that should basically create a whole new, hopefully create a whole blossom, help the Cardano ecosystem blossom even further. Because the cool thing is, once we've got these kind of like trustless decentralized feeds, there's a whole number of other products to build on top of them that people haven't even started thinking about. Like, we're getting approached weekly by some really interesting R&D projects that need Oracle feeds for some innovative things. And some of the obvious ones I've talked about in the past with you as well is like, fantasy sports, betting, insurance. But some of the more interesting ones we're seeing is like supply chain validation, like anything where something happens in the real world, you have to turn into data that a Cardano smart contract can use, and you have to prove that the data was gathered, collected, and published in a way that's trustworthy, trustless, whatever side of the coin you're looking at. The data is authentic and accurate. So yeah, I was starting with these price feeds. We got our head down because there's a lot of work just to deliver those CEX and CNT feeds. But then, as far as I'm concerned, the sky's the limit for oracles in general, but particularly an Oracle on Cardano, which I believe is the most decentralized, secure, robust, trustless L1 blockchain out there, and I'm looking forward to the bull market so we can prove that to the rest of the world.
Many of us are looking forward to that bull market. We've all been here, yourself included, right? I remember creating content when there was basically nobody here to watch it, and then in a matter of a couple of weeks or months, it seems like everybody wants to consume content again, right? So I'm sure just like with every builder here, it seems like for the longest you're building silently under the radar, not necessarily being acknowledged until things begin to kind of go awry, specifically with oracles, as you mentioned. Now, I do agree with one of your points that you mentioned there earlier, and that's the fact that the community has to demand this, right? We've seen, as you mentioned, protocols getting away with these single points or these single APIs, and now, as you mentioned, the solutions are available. One thing that you mentioned was a potential token swap to kind of fund this moving forward, where obviously, whoever's token that you're exchanging, you also want to believe in their vision as well, right? But to hear that you guys are thinking about new ways to make this more accessible, I think is the ultimate goal. So however you guys come to mutual agreement, I'm okay with, obviously, as long as you guys are okay with it. But it's definitely, I think, a must in my eyes, given some of the recent events that we've had. One other thing I wanted to just kind of jump into, and of course, again, this kind of goes back to you guys providing a service to the community. I've covered C3 on this channel before, and most recently they opened up their developer portal. So that's very equivalent to the Explorer here that I pulled up from you guys, which kind of shows, to the community in a very open way what is actually being published, who it's being verified by, and links to the actual Cardano scan or to the Cardano Explorers. My follow-up question is, with respect to your offering, how customizable is it as a comparison with something like C3? They're able to customize their data feeds to match their clients' needs based off of the deviation, right? If there's ever any price spikes or price declines, the heartbeat or the frequency of which the updates occur in, and then very lastly, the actual amount of nodes that verify that. So can you maybe, for a comparison, highlight how customizable the Orcfax feeds will be, given how different of an approach you guys are taking to providing the same sort of service?
Yeah, there's several things you mentioned there. Like the way that we make our feeds available is either by heartbeat, where we say, we publish this automatically once an hour, and which is what we're doing with the ADA USD feed. And then a common practice in the Oracle space and other L1s as well is this idea of a deviation. So let's say you have a regular heartbeat, but suddenly there's a spike in price. And so if there's a 1% deviation in price, we will publish right then as well before the next hour is up. And then we're going to offer, we've been working on the capability for on-demand publication. So if you are a protocol that needs a price on chain because you want to execute some smart contract or some script and you need that datum, you can request that on demand. If for example, if it's a price feed that's going to publish in an hour, but it's like 30 minutes before it's going to publish and you want it now, you can do an on-demand request. So that's the 3 different ways that data can become available. The ability to add new feeds on demand is all depends on what kind of feeds people are asking for. So we believe very strongly in Orcfax, in this principle we call, the mathematical principle of triangulation. This idea that you should have at least 3 points of observation on a particular subject to determine whether what you're seeing is true. If all 3 points are seeing the same thing, it's very likely that this is a true thing. And that very basic principle is what we apply to our Oracle data collection. So when I mentioned earlier centralized exchanges, so we've got our collector nodes with plugins to go collect data from multiple centralized exchanges. So that means we are now ready to receive whatever data those centralized exchanges are able to give us. So typically they will, if you're looking at a Kraken, you can get about 100 different feed types of different kinds of coins that are being bought and sold on Kraken, for example. So once we have the ability to triangulate data from a particular data type, in this case centralized exchanges, so we're about to release an upgrade where we're collecting from at least 10 different primary sources. Then we can say, okay, somebody just asked for I don't know what euro to BTC or whatever kind of. I was going to mention a number of other L1s, but I don't want to even say their words out loud. It's like Voldemort. But let's say any of the kind of centralized price feed that you would get from a centralized exchange. Once we have our plugins ready to do that, we can then say, okay, there's demand for this other kind of like centralized price feed coming from these exchanges. We can add them. The same goes for the Cardano native token. Once we've built the capability to triangulate and collect the data about Cardano native tokens, then we can say, okay, we're doing these 10 Cardano native tokens. Now we can add these other 10. But then to suddenly come and say, oh, we'd like to have a feed for the Euro 2024 soccer tournament. That's a whole different type of data, right? And how you would go about triangulating, sourcing that data is a whole different approach. So what the answer to your question is that we can offer more feeds if we are already collecting and triangulating that type of data. So we started with centralized exchanges, removing Cardano native tokens. We're very much interested in sports as a next potential place. We're very much interested in supply chain. But then it's like, okay, do we have a solution for triangulating that data type? If so, now we can start looking at the list of other kinds of data types within that particular sector. So because some people are like, hey, let's come to the Oracle network and say, hey, give us this data. Like, verified random function is another common one. It sounds easier than it actually is to provide. So for us, the way we're going about it is we are very much being driven by consumer demand. So we're very much prioritizing our own development work based on the knocks on the door that we're getting from DeFi protocols saying, we need this, we need this, we need this. And quite honestly, it's all been CNT up until now. Like, everybody needs better, accurate, more reliable CNT price data at the moment. And that's over the next few months is going to be our main focus, and then we start branching off into some more interesting ideas after that.
You actually hit on a separate question that I had, which was going to be, what is the focus after CNTs? And I think you just kind of mentioned sports and supply chain verification, which I think are two huge areas, which again would tap into new audiences and potentially bring them into the whole Web3 space, right? When they're able to kind of maybe just get their feet wet with something like providing Oracle data, by being affected by Oracle data. As we do get ready to kind of wind things down here, I wanted to highlight the spike in real world assets. So there's been a lot of talk surrounding RWAs. I'm not necessarily sure how an Oracle could tie into verifying RWA data, but I would definitely love to maybe, poke your brain a little bit more on that during our next call. Because again, I feel like with this upcoming bull run, that isn't like the one thing I continuously hear about. And I'm hearing about even, I think it's NMaker, Fluid Tokens, and IMX putting together Finest, right? Which is going to be a platform that allows for RWA tokenization. So with respect to that, I'd love to kind of get your insights on that. But we've covered quite a bit here today, Peter. I do have a call coming up here in just a couple of minutes. So we highlighted the validator note sale. I'll leave the links to that down below. We touched on Tosi Drop, where the ISPO rewards are finally now being passed out on again. For anybody who hasn't claimed yet, I believe there's a 6-month timeline where you can claim before those tokens go back towards ecosystem development. Following that, we talked about Cardano native feeds and some upgrades to the tech, as well as the incentivized testnet, which should be coming up here very, very soon. In closing, what else is on the Orcfax roadmap that you want to bring forward to the community that we just maybe haven't gotten the chance to highlight just yet?
I'm not sure. I think I've covered a lot of ground there. Again, we're very much focused this week on our validator license reservation process, and encourage people to jump in and have a look and hopefully participate and we'd love to have you as an Orcfax validator in the near future. So please come join our community, come check us out. We've got a very friendly, active Discord. So any questions you have, pop in there. We're happy to answer them.
Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Van Garderen, and I have to give myself a thumbs up here. I didn't mess up your name this time. I'm very proud.
I'm proud of you too. Thank you very much.
No, not a problem. It's always a pleasure. Again, jam-packed episode here, touching on so much. For the ladies and gentlemen watching at home, as always, if you guys found anything as a part of today's discussion to be helpful, please make sure to smash that thumbs up. It really does help this Cardano YouTube channel, not just you, but also to spread this message out and to bring Cardano to the masses, which hopefully should be all of our goals. As always, if you guys do want more content like this surrounding all the great builders here in this ecosystem, consider subscribing to the channel. And last but not least, if you have any questions for myself or Peter surrounding Orcfax or any of the topics we've discussed today, then please make sure to go ahead and leave a comment down below. That said, and as always, we'll see you guys in the next video.